Hello and welcome to another Guardians of Wiltshire video. I'm your host Dewi, and this week on Not All Those Who Wonder, a Lost Community interview is Alastair King. How are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. It's still lockdown, so this will be coming out like a month after we record. So it's currently the 9th of June. So yeah, everyone's still in lockdown. You're helping support the country with COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm taking the country's money to support them. But
But less of that. Let's get straight into all the hobbying. So, how did you get into the hobby?
so probably a reoccurring theme is I was a massive fan of the films and the books when I was younger. So The Hobbit was my favourite book when I was a kid, like
Yeah,
before I even knew The Lord of the Rings was a film. A
yeah,
film?
me,
A thing.
me too.
A
I had
film.
a cartoon storybook of the Hobbit, which was quite cool,
Yeah.
like a comic strip.
Yeah. So, because I think it was one of my mum's favourite books or something like that.
Yeah, ditto.
But actually, I also really liked. This is going a bit more off on a bit of tangent. So, have you ever read Rover Random?
No.
It's it's a proper kids book by Tolkien, basically about a dog I think that goes to the moon. But
Nice.
like, I like that. And then Farmer Giles of Ham.
No, I've not heard of that either.
So I think it was like it's a collection of short stories, which like one of the Tales in the Perilous Realms things and all that. But I really
Okay.
like those. So generally, when I was younger, so I was unaware that I was into Tolkien almost to like before. And then obviously the first film came out. I distinctly remember my brother and my dad going to go watch it at the cinema. Not knowing what the Fellowship of the Ring was, but it had that thing about it, which I now understand that only big films have, if that or like sort of
Like,
cultural phenomenon
yeah,
films. So like your Star Wars or well, depends on your opinion of the new films.
yeah.
But
But kind of
so yeah,
a blockbuster that everyone's waiting for, kind of like Avatar Wars and that
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah, like the proper tentpole films.
Yeah,
But so I was kind of that. I ended up watching The Fellowship of the Ring on video when it came out, which actually
nice.
weirdly is just outside my door because we found it in the attic the other day. But so yeah, so and then I I don't know how much I liked it when I first watched it. I think I was just like enamored by like all of the cool sort of world building and scenery and that. I distinctly remember being proper like scared of Lurtz though.
Oh,
Like
really?
that scene at the end where he's fighting Avagon, like proper freaked me out. I remember like to sort of urge like nightmares when I was younger, which may be why I've never done an Isengard army.
Because how
But
old were you when the Fellowship came out? Because you're slightly
so
younger
I
than
would have
I am.
been 6 or 7
Yeah,
because it was 2001 it came out, wasn't it?
yeah, I was
Yeah.
8.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, so I think I was on that line just young enough to be scared of it, if that makes
yeah.
sense. But like, because I then remember when the Two Towers came out, I have a distinct memory that we bought it. I, d- I bought the DVD. It was the first DVD we ever owned as a family. I've gone on off a
Nice.
massive tangent of how I got
No,
through
carry
it.
on,
Uh,
carry on.
and and we were coming back from a holiday in Centre Parks in Europe.
Okay.
I think it, and we were on the ferry on the way back, and there was a bomb scare in Dover, so the ferry couldn't dock. And then I
Okay.
remember just having the main thing I remember is one playing Time Crisis or Time Crisis on the arcade until we ran out of change, and the other thing is reading over and over the blurb and the back to the DVD case for the Two Towers because I didn't know if how into Lord of the Rings I was at the time, but I must have been really into it because I was just like, it was the first thing I wanted to do as soon as I got back was watch the DVD because I still wasn't old enough to watch it in the cinema because that
Yeah,
was back when it wasn't 12A, it was you had to be 12 to go watch it,
yeah, it was.
and I would have only been
Yeah, because I think the Fellowship was a PG, and then the
yeah
next two were 12s, I think.
2 would yeah. So I think even though I was 8, I must have been 7 or 8 at the time, so I was a bit older, but I couldn't go watch it in the cinema. Um, uh, Weirdly, at the same time, so I didn't watch The Two Towers, and I got really super obsessed with Lord of the Rings, to the point where me and my mate, when we were younger, tried to learn Elvish. Um, I
Nice.
used to know how to ask for, like, I knew more Elvish than I did German from GCSE at one point. I can't remember pretty much any of it
That's
now,
amazing.
but yeah, well, I've never been great at languages, but weirdly Elvish was. I probably was saying it all wrong, to be honest. But so I watched The Two Towers, and then so it's about the time that Harry Potter became a massive thing, or at least I was
Yeah,
aware
it
of
was
it.
both of them at the same time.
Yeah, so at school we were told that we had to read a book, and I was one of those kids that didn't really read that much because I was a boy and cool and stuff like that. I wasn't cool, but like, and I basically they got me to try and read the Harry Potter books, and I'm not criticizing anyone who likes the books, but I found the first book so dull when I was a kid. The main thing I remember, which is ironic when you think about how Tolkien writes, is her describing how a house on a rock in a thunderstorm, and it took like what felt like 30 pages, and I
Yeah.
never finished the Philosopher's Stone. I got, I think, a third of the way through, and then I just couldn't do it.
I
um,
got my
and
mum read
then
my mum read that to me, so I didn't have to read it, which was excellent.
yeah, and then basically, because I got told that I had to read a book by the end of the year, like a proper sort of book at school, I decided, being a stubborn sort of kid, like, fine, I'm going to read The Lord of the Rings, because they were like, that's a stupid book for like a 8-year-old to read. Um, but then I actually read it, I enjoyed it, and then I finished it like well before like the end of the year and stuff like that.
Okay, was that
Um,
just the Fellowship or the whole thing?
no, the whole thing.
Okay.
Because the book which I had, it wasn't the separate ones. It was basically an A5 size book,
Yeah.
hardback, with 1,077 pages in, and I still remember that to this day. And I was just like, it was basically because it was a challenge to read it for the year, and then so I did it. And I kind of also wanted to get to the end of the book before the final film came out.
Yeah.
So, because I feel like it's quite hard to go and read something I've seen the film of, especially when it's a lot of investment of like 1,077 pages. Like
Yeah.
when you're a kid, it's like, well, I know how it ends. So whereas watching a film, you get all the different stuff.
Yeah.
At least
Yeah.
that was my mindset at the time. It's a bit different. So yeah, I generally, so I read that, finished the book. Film came out. It was the first one because they introduced 12A ratings that I could go watch in the cinema,
Yeah.
and that was literally the single greatest moment of my life. Um, Certainly at the point, at that point in time, and it's one of the few times which I wish I could forget a film,
Yeah, I do know what
because
you
I always want
mean.
to go back and watch, basically, specifically like things like The Charge of the Rohirrim for the first time,
See,
like, and
so I went. I think I must have watched the Fellowship again on video.
mm,
Then went and saw the Two Towers in the cinema with my parents, and I remember because it's like the first film I can remember my dad staying fully awake for the whole time.
which
And
is
then,
impressive considering
yeah,
how long it is as well.
yeah, and he was notorious for falling asleep in every cinema with every film when we were younger. And then some family friends of mine brought round Return of the King on DVD, and I remember like specifically the Charge of the Rohirrim, and being like, it's at that point in the film where I was 10, 11 maybe, and I remember like lead on the floor, cushion under my chest, hands like that, staring at the screen, going, "Holy shit balls, this is amazing!" And then
Mhm.
yeah, and that's the only bit of the film that I can remember watching for the first time and
Yeah,
and remember like physically like shaking a little bit with excitement.
yeah. I call it the spine tingling
Yeah,
feeling. You know when you
yeah,
get that
yeah,
like almost cold shiver down
yeah,
your like back, like, or like the head, like, and genuinely, it was also, I think, the film, because I never got to go to the cinema loads when I was younger, just because, like, I mean, I've got me and two older brothers trying to
I was gonna
organise
say.
us going to the cinema. It was probably like hell for my parents at the time.
I was gonna say.
But it was like
I've
when
known
I
you on nights out, so trying to get you in a cinema, I could not even
I don't know what you're saying about me on nights out there, but I'm very well behaved. I'd
imagine.
never get in trouble. But, but, anyway, yeah. So, but that was when not only did I fully like fall in love with Lord of the Rings, because to be fair, I already did, but like I fell in love with film and cinema itself.
Yeah.
And like I got like it's one of the few things. It's weird. If I hadn't have watched Lord of the Rings, my life would be so different now. Because
I would have no idea what I would be doing.
so not only one, I will eventually get onto it. I got into this hobby because of Lord of the Rings, which is the original question. I don't know what 10 minutes ago, but like I played the trumpet for about 8 years. And the
Okay.
reason I played the trumpet is because I wanted to be able to play the music from Lord of the Rings and like
Nice.
other films and stuff like that. So I did that from probably year 4. So how old are you in year 4? 8, something like that.
7 or 8, I would say.
Yeah, like all the way up until basically I got braces when I was going into college. So I played it for a good sort of 8 years, like just because I loved playing, specifically originally the Lord of the Rings music, which
Yeah.
actually some of it's really hard to play. It turns out,
Oh,
but
yeah, I
and
can
then like
imagine.
yeah, and then other film music like all the classics. So you got Back to the Future, Indiana Jones,
Yeah.
like Star Wars and all that. But yeah, so I did that. I got into film and stuff like that, and then went and did media stuff and things like that. I always used to be maths and sciencey when I was younger, and then because I was like, no, I like Lord of the Rings, so suddenly like I'm going to learn how to do media studies, film, and things like that. Got into the hobby. So yeah, like I have no idea how my life would be if I hadn't ever watched Lord of the Rings. So going back to the original question, so all that happened, and then one of my mates called Alec, actually I remember when I was in year 6, so it was after, was it year 5 or year 6? Basically, he was the one that I was learning Elvish with, and then we dubbed ourselves like a little Council of Elrond and stuff like that with some of our other mates because
Oh,
we were
that's
cool.
cute.
Uh, um, yeah, which is weird because I hate elves now. But back then, I didn't have much of an issue with them. But I was like pre-Hobbit era dwarves. We didn't hate the elves so much. But no, so I keep distracting myself some tangents. So yeah, I remember I went around his house once, and he had a bunch of the figures. Like his older brother had a bunch of the figures, and then he had some. And I remember playing the best game of Lord of the Rings strategy battle I've ever played in my life because we didn't know any of the rules. Like
Excellent.
it was just literally we were there rolling dice. I had Treebeard and throwing Mary and Pippin up onto a Mimikill.
Nice.
I think the Mimikill had just come out, so we want to use it. Like literally, and then them just going and killing everyone on the Mimikill, and then they controlled the Mimikill and started running over everyone, stuff like that. Like I almost regret learning the rules of the game because I just remember that being one of the best sort of games ever because we were just like, this is hilarious if we do it like that. It's proper like I always forget, like you know when you watch a TV show or something like and where kids are just playing and making stuff up in their head and
Oh,
somehow
yeah, yeah,
they're like interlinked and they don't
yeah.
care about the rules. Like it was like that, and it's just like, and I remember doing that, and then basically, from there I was like, I want some of these models and stuff like that. Matt, so many people may know him from running into the West and stuff like that.
Matt's your
Not
older brother.
yeah, my
Yeah.
older brother got so he got into it at the same time as me, partly all that stuff as well. Um, and so we got the starting boxes. So we we ordered the Two Towers starting box set,
Nice.
um, but it was when the Return of the King box set was about to come out as well. So no one was buying the Two Towers anymore, and everyone was pre-ordering the Return of the King one. But because I wanted the Rohan, like we ordered that one. But then Games Workshop got it confused, and they sent us the Return of the King one. And then they were like, and then we found out it was like, oh, sorry. And then they sent us the Two Towers one as well. And then we got both box sets, basically.
Nice.
So that was cool. I then remember one of my other games after that. It wasn't against Matt, but one of his friends. I didn't understand bow and shooting. At this point, because Games Workshop didn't let
You still don't.
True. Like Games Workshop didn't let you in stores to do stuff if you were under 12.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Matt could go in because he was a couple of years older than me, but I couldn't. But I remember thinking a shoot value. You know how you roll a shoot value 3+ to hit.
Yeah.
I thought that was just it. And then if you hit, then the model was dead, because it made sense to me at the time. Because when you watch the films, just, well, Legolas hits something and it dies. So I'm pretty sure that's how it works in the rules. So basically, shooting was ridiculously good, especially because the dice that we had, we accumulated from just the box games we had, because we didn't have dice cubes. And it turns out, and we didn't know at the time, that some of the dice we had specific numbers on them. So we had one
Okay.
which has 2 4s, 2 5s, 2 6s. Then there's one which has 2 2s, 2 3s, and 2 4s. And then I don't know what game it's from, but I kind of want to find out. But and so basically, I happen to be using the dice, which is always a 4+ for my Gundorian archer, who's just shooting all of these orcs. It's like, I am on fire at the moment with this one.
Absolutely slaying it.
Yeah. So that's two of the earliest games I remember. But basically, so yeah, that kind of got me hooked in the hobby. Matt got into it a lot more than me originally, because he could go into Games Workshop.
Yeah.
I also remember at the time, I really liked painting the models, because I had that sort of naivety of, I didn't know what a good model really looked like when I was 9. I was like, I've painted it, and I'm like, that just looks amazing, because I've managed to paint in the lines and stuff like that. So
Oh yeah, I know that feeling.
so it's just like, I still think in my head that I was an amazing painter when I was 8, but realistically, when I look at the models, I probably wasn't. But yeah, so I got into it because of that whole 40-minute sort of tangent I went off of.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So leading on from your excellent painting skills, what's your favourite aspect of the hobby?
So if we were to break it down, it varies actually a lot, just to give you a not straight answer. So I mainly, people know me in SVG for the gaming side of it mainly,
Yeah.
which I generally is probably what I'm most interested in with the SVG stuff. I've done some other systems and that. I really like building things, like converting and modeling sort of terrain and stuff like. Because basically, I was a cheapskate when I was younger, because no one has money. So I remember, if something didn't have a physical model, I would love going and building it and
Oh
just
yeah,
being
that's
like.
cool.
So we'll probably get onto it later. But I used to play Skaven and that, and then I do, and basically it was like, sometimes there weren't things, or I'm there going, I can't afford 35 quid to spend on that,
Yeah.
so I'm just gonna make it out of the bit like sprues are like the greatest thing in the world. If you can make stuff out of sprue, just carving it with a penknife and stuff. I was in scouts as well, so I used to carve stuff and then glue it together and all that. Because sprues being the same material as a plastic model, you can paint on it and it's not an issue. Whereas sometimes paint on cardboard on that doesn't come out the way that you want it to.
Yeah.
But that also came from, I went to GW. My local GW in Winchester was amazing. And the guys who were there, they ran proper sort of workshops where you went in, they'd get out the big chunks of blue foam, and then they'll
Okay.
teach you how to make a hill or stuff like that, and then you get to keep what you made and things. Interestingly, significant person in the Middle Earth team, although he's not in it anymore, was the first person I ever spoke to in a Games Workshop. Can you
Is
guess
that
who it was?
Mr. Troke?
Yeah, he was,
Yeah.
because he's from around the area.
I was going to say
I don't think he remembers.
He's
So
I
yeah,
was going to
he's
say
from
he's round Winchester way. I know that much.
yeah, so he's from Ringwood, and then he went to uni in Winchester. I only know that because I ended up watching the video of basically Games Workshop have nicked your idea. I don't know if you've seen. They're now doing interviews with their sort of
No,
staff about how
no,
they
I
got into
haven't.
the hobby and stuff like that.
No, I haven't.
So you set a trend.
What's that
But yeah,
on?
so basically Adam was the first. I just saw it on the Warhammer Community Facebook. It came up basically on Facebook stream.
Oh, okay.
I think it only came out yesterday.
I might have to look
Um,
for
but it's pretty much what we're doing right now. So I wonder if Croky watched it and then was like, "That's a great idea."
that.
But yeah, no. So Adam was like the first person intro game for SVG. So
Nice.
if like anyone doesn't like me, it's his fault that I'm in the hobby. Yeah. Uh, I, yeah. In terms of actually going, the local Games Workshop store was really like one of the main things that kept me in the hobby as well, because not many of
Oh,
my
good.
mates did it, especially when I was in secondary school. And like it was just I go down there, so pretty much. If you imagine how it is now for us going to a GBHL event, it was
Yeah.
that, but in the Games
Oh,
Workshop.
that's good then.
Like so which I found really weird when people used to criticize like Games Workshops for being hardcore sell and stuff like that, because I was like, no, that I can name like pretty much every staff member that's ever been there, and I
Oh, that's
like
good then.
now I've gotten drunk with some of them and stuff like that. But no, genuinely, like they were really really good and stuff like that. But so yeah, so gaming and building. I've never been as into the painting. Like I like painting sometimes, but it's never consistent enough to say it's my like like I have a very quick burnout on projects often, in that like we're like, oh, that'd be really fun to paint and all that stuff. And the issue is I'll paint like once a year or once or twice a year. So I'll paint loads for a month, and then I won't paint anything for 6 months, and then I'll paint for a month again, which has the downside of when I'm painting, I have to remember. Like it's like anything, you have to then sort of get your fitness back up, so to
Yeah.
speak. And like
Yeah, the muscle
my
memory and all
painting's
that
rubbish
stuff.
when I start. Yeah, and then by the time I get good at it again, I then stop painting because I'm like, oh, fed up of painting again. But
So,
yeah, so
would you
gaming
would
and
you say that's
building and
your
converting.
would you say painting is probably your least favorite aspect
Ooh, there's a slightly, in terms of specifically the hobby that I do, yes, but I've got another least favorite aspect of
then? Yes.
the system specifically.
Okay.
Um, I'm gonna be a bit. I'm gonna coin it Matt Light on this, and maybe a bit controversial. But one of my issues with SVG is because we all like the films or the books usually.
Yeah.
We all have something in common, but I do think it sometimes means that we are narratively restrictive or creatively sort of like, because for this, so when it comes down, the constant conversation about theme and fluff
Yeah.
and stuff like that, but like I always have a slight issue in that if someone makes, say, the Riders of Fear and Legion, that's cool because we all know it from the film and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and so we know the history and the background and all that stuff. But say someone made a Gondor army, but it wasn't actually Gondor. They wrote their whole entire backstory and stuff like that, and they decided that Boromir was the most suitable profile for their hero, who they called, I don't know, Jake.
Yeah.
That shows my creativity there. But and then they sort of wrote all this backstory, did some cool conversions and stuff like that. But then the army's still fairly competitive. People genuinely don't appreciate that as much as they do something just coming from the book, even though one took a lot more effort and like
Yeah, I
creative.
kind of get what you mean.
Yeah, like as in like, so I feel like sometimes because of where everyone's got a name, it then means that like you either have to go to captains to create your own story,
Yeah.
or you can substitute profiles in, but then it's hard for people to get in their head and appreciate the same effort as like maybe in other systems where there aren't named characters and you can customize them a lot more,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Because I love actually all the themed armies, but one of the issues now is because some of them are competitive. I'm just using it as an example because I mentioned it, but I've seen a Riders of Theoden army so many times now. Like there's normally about 3 or 4 at every event I go to,
Yeah,
which it's still cool, but it gets a bit boring. Whereas for
and
me, if someone
it's not an easy list to do an alternate color scheme for either.
yeah, like or just be a bit different. Where if someone turns up with a pirate goblin army, like for example,
Yeah,
I go, that's hilarious and cool, and then they've just gone and like, so a mate of mine's done this, which is why I'm using an example, like so they allied in Gundabad ogres and stuff like that to be like
oh, cool.
giant sort of pirates and stuff like that, and like giving them peg legs, and sort of, and it's kind of like that. I'm there going, that's really cool. I know it's not Lord of the Rings because I'm pretty sure none of the books. I'm sure someone can correct me in the comments if not, that there was a pirate goblin army. But I'm there going, that's cool and creative, and I like that. But there's some people find it then jarring when they play it because they're like, they want to recreate the films or the books, and
Yeah,
then it's like, yeah. So I feel like sometimes it, just because of the way it's based off of an IP. So
yeah,
it's the same with any IP system. People feel like they're creatively restricted more.
yeah, yeah. I do get what you mean. I know for me that doesn't bother me because I'd rather
Yeah,
go off the books, etc. But I know the Green Dragon guys have spoken about it a lot. The Green Dragon podcast and how they said the new edition or the current edition restricted some of their. And then I know they had a bit of an issue with the FAQ before it was tweaked again, saying like they had an issue with, say you want to do like Ale the Young or with Kyrian, etc. But it's not the
yeah,
Kyrian we've got a profile for. It's Kyrian, King of
mm,
Old, so you have to
yeah,
kind of, and then you have a King of
yeah,
Men who's called Kyrian, but he's not Kyrian, and like
yeah. See,
I do get what you mean.
that's a good example of like actually the things that, because I feel like the King of Men should be like a free might hero, like I
Yeah,
don't know, use Forlong or something like that.
yeah,
Uh, um, and like, but you can't quite do it, which is one of those trade-offs that you've got now, and you've got a bit less freedom now in the armies that you do, in a certain extent, to take competitively, or to just a tournament or
yeah,
open play. But so you got more fluffier and balanced armies essentially, but you also don't have quite the creativity you maybe do in other systems. But
yeah,
that's my, I get over that. I don't really like. It's just the one negative I really have with the sort of
yeah,
specifically SVG hobby.
yeah. So how do you find? I know you said you paint for like a month a year or 2 months a year, 6 months apart. But how do you find the balance between all of that? Would you rather paint a little bit longer throughout the year and spread it out a bit more? Because I know you do a lot of gaming and you go to a lot of tournaments.
So I've kind of, I used to, mainly because I couldn't afford to buy loads of models for a long time, especially when I first started doing the GHL. I was a broke student who basically was scrimping to get to any event possible.
And sleeping on
Um,
floors.
yeah, like I don't think that was to do with being broke. I always actually booked somewhere, but they, um, but I had. I've had, I'm a massive hoarder. I don't get rid of anything, like, or
Yeah,
I never
ditto.
used to. And then because of where I'd done SVG when I was younger, I then moved to Warm Fancy and then came back to it. Um, like I've had loads of models anyway, so it was always more, I was just buying, say, that model because I wanted to use them in my army, and then I'd paint up that model. Um,
Okay.
but because I'd be working to a deadline. Actually, my fiefdoms army is the best example of this. So I never used to put an effort into painting in a whole army. Like I hadn't for ages, and I was like, the fiefdoms army was just going to be a hobby project. Um, it wasn't competitive at all back in the old edition, in theory. But
Not really.
yeah, and then I was just like, I'll just paint it up and all that stuff. And then I remember it was one of the early ones that Stockport. I think it was, they had the league final. I wasn't gonna go because I was either didn't have the money or wasn't doing something that weekend, or or something like that. And then I was going to go last minute, and I'd pretty much just finished painting all of my troops, and I was like, got them happy and it was really well done. And like, I was enjoying. If I enjoy painting, I can happily paint for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then because I like a challenge, if I've got a block, I'll then work my way through the block. But
Yeah.
once I finish that block, I'll then sort of just be like dead and never do painting again. For me, like, I'm competitive enough that I can then make it a competition for myself for painting.
Yeah.
And so I was doing that with the fiefdoms, and then I was doing the whole thing people say, keep your characters to the end as a treat.
Yeah.
The issue was because I then was going to this tournament, I was like, oh, well, I'll take this army. I hadn't painted any of the heroes. And then I ended up painting Imrahil and Angbor on the train up there for the 3-hour train journey that I was doing.
Jeez.
And they look awful, to be honest. Whereas like Forlong was done really well because I did him like actually that's a weird thing. I seem to often have a hero as a test model as well. I
That's
don't know
weird.
why. Like I think it's just because
You want to get the army started with a hero.
I think I want to know the color scheme looks good on the hero because heroes will have more colors on them than the troops will.
Yeah.
So normally you just cut out stuff for the when you're going on to the troops. So if I know I've got all the paints and that I need to do the heroes, I know I can do it going into the troops.
Yeah.
I think so. I always normally end up starting with one hero as a test paint for some weird reason, thinking that. But I never realised that before. But basically I'll set myself a challenge of getting it done by this tournament. I'll start off with it all painted really nicely. Then I'll either get it done or it'll get closer and closer, and then something like I'll be there going, I'll cut back the sort of final highlight stage, and then I'll cut back the next stage and all that stuff. And it's like I always justify it to myself, going like I can make them look good later because it's just I then need to do that wash or then that highlight. And so it was like they're painted to tabletop standard to the point I can take it to a tournament and I can make them look good later, but I never come back to them later. I also repaint the same models over and over rather than painting the unpainted ones, which is weird.
Yeah,
Like my
that's
dwarfs have
baffling.
been painted about 3 or 4 different color schemes, whereas I then still have like all my Rohan stuff's unpainted. Not that I have much or like and stuff like that, but it's just sort of I don't know. Yeah.
So that moves us on to your collection, really.
Yeah.
How big is it?
So I don't know if you can see. So those shelves
Yeah.
is all Warhammer.
Nice.
It goes back about 2 meters there. I've then also got all of the stuff. There's another sub shelf there. I've got way too much, and I actually need to clear out. I've got actually, if I count, so there's two of the new massive cases which are meant to hold 200 models in. I've got 2 of those, and then about 4 other ones, and then I've got these drawers and shelves have just got models piled up on them. That's SVG and other systems, but SVG. I know last time I counted how many dwarfs I had, and this was before I did Army of Thor, which I've now got quite a bit of that of as well. I had 8 Barlins, I think.
Why 8?
5 of them. Because did you ever?
You got the Khazad-dûm box, didn't you? With
Yeah, so the
9 Khazad Guard.
Barlin's Guard and stuff like that. But and also it's one of those things where every time that I'd go on eBay to buy a lot, there's always a Barlin in there. I was really tempted as my Hearthguard to get another because the Barlin model is normally quite cheap, just to get another 6 or 7 of them, and then my Hearthguard for Druid would just be an army of Barlins, Son of Finland.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. And then some of them are different poses though. So I've got the young Barlin and I've got Foreign's Company one. But yeah, no. So I've got, I think it's 6 of the Son of Findin ones. I don't have an old Dane model though, which I really, really want because it's the one dwarf model hero that I'm missing from my collection. And
I
the main
have
reason
a feeling I might have one.
Yeah, and the main reason I want it, and is because 1, I'm missing it, but 2, I never got it because you used to buy all the heroes individually, and they'd be 4 or 5 quid at the time, and then they put it in a twin pack with Barlin,
Yep.
And then I was like, I've got too many Varlins. I can't just. This is when I was younger. I can't justify spending 12 quid at the time on like to get another Varlin just to get Dane. So I never got Dane. And then they obviously released a new model, and now you can't get the old one. I was just like, So yeah, like I do want one of the old Danes, but it's just because it was like I can't get another Varlin. But yeah. Anyway, I've got that. I had essentially a War of the Ring dwarf army.
Okay, like a Khazad-dûm Durance folk
Yeah,
army.
yeah. So I end up. I think when David Farmer is a mate of mine from school. Just dropped my pen, and he wasn't into SVG at the time. But do you ever do a stock take where you just get out all of your stuff and then just assume?
Yeah, I need to do one because the last time I did one was maybe a year, 18 months ago.
Yeah. So this would have been back in like 2013, 14. I got all of my dwarfs out just to see how many were. I think I had about 250 to 300.
Wow.
And I remember it was about 4,000 points worth, I think.
Jeez.
And I've never used them all at once because I don't know when I would.
Because why
And
would
also
you?
half of them aren't painted. Like this is what I mean. I've got so there's about 2,000 pounds, 2,000 points worth. Maybe not quite that much, but roughly say 1,000 to 2,000 points worth of painted Durance folk dwarfs.
Yeah.
And then I've got another double that and a bit more unpainted Durance folk dwarfs. And the painted ones have been painted about at least a minimum of 2 times each. And so I'm now going like I could have painted the whole entire other collection of exactly the same models pretty much, but for some reason I just repainted the same
Yeah.
ones. But so yeah, that's my dwarfs. Uh, I've got a fiefdoms army, which is basically a warband of each of the cool
Yeah.
fiefdoms guys. I don't have the Foot Knights of Dalamoth because they weren't available at the time.
Yeah.
Um, I've got a very broken eagle army at the moment,
Oh
which was my
no.
first GBHL army, which I'm going to shame Josh Triffitt because I remember I fixed them all and got them all. It was, I think, the first time I ever used them. Got them all in the stands, glued them in and that. I played him, and then we were packing up. We had a great game, and then he accidentally dropped his rule book on all of them where they were like just slipped off, and then just smashed half of the stands and stuff like that.
Oh
And
no.
if anyone's got the flying base stands, they know they're the most impossible things to fix and
I
sort of like.
I drill out the holes and put like 4 mil acrylic rods in. They're
Yeah, that's
so much sturdier.
so. What I ended up doing is I have Eldar jet bike on me for 40k, which I barely use,
Okay.
but they've got like just little slotter stands. So on the most of them that I did, I just pulled out the stem. Although
Yeah.
a couple of them, the ball was just wedged in because it just solidified, and then basically so I could sit them on top. But
Yeah.
so they didn't like last long in prime condition, and then I fixed them, and then they just like I spent a year using them, and they kind of just fell apart and
Yeah.
got battered going back and forth because eagles are pretty hard to transport. So I
Yes.
got an eagle army. I got the army of Thor army, which was actually one of the few armies that I really enjoyed painting,
Okay.
and to the point where normally I paint an army and then I get bored, like I'm like painting and I don't paint another one. I painted that army. I was like, oh, I enjoyed it. I got best runner up painting thingy at Into the West with them.
Oh nice.
Um,
Oh yes, I remember because you did like the
the
kind of
the marble
bluish,
bases.
the bluish bases. Yeah.
Yeah, there's green bases, blue dwarfs, but
Yeah.
uh, and then I was motivated to paint. I was like, oh, I've actually like because that was really cool because I'd never been considered a painter before,
Yeah.
like as in and then I went on and I was like, cool, I'm gonna get a Gundabad Hunter Orc army painted because I had like a couple of books of Hunter Orcs and stuff like that. The Gundabads are really good fun to paint, and then I've started painting Hunter Orcs and I wanted to like die. Like I don't know if anyone's enjoyed painting Hunter Orcs. I will give you a box of Hunter Orcs, like, because I hate them that much. Because it's just, I'm not actually going to, just to like clarify, but but like they're the single most unenjoyable model I've ever painted in my life, and I've painted a
Like
lot of different
like
models.
like Matt said and like Will said last week, this
Yeah,
system is for the Browns, and
yeah. Like
Hunchforks are the epitome of the Browns.
I think it's you also can't do anything interesting with them. So I did a similar thing. So I did the marble bases with the dwarfs, and then I was doing like like a glazed ice base,
Yep.
and I really enjoyed doing the ice bases on them. And then I came to actually painting the model, and I was just like, this is hell. I hate life. Which is why, if anyone's seen me at the GT, especially that year, because I was doing it as a project, my dwarfs looked really nice and cool, and like I was happy to show them off. And then my hunter orcs didn't. And I remember because I went on live stream the first year I took the hunter orcs, I was so happy because I went on live stream with the dwarves. And then this year, I was out of I was on the top two tables or top table, and Adam Troke came over and was just like, going like, "Do you mind going on a live stream?" It's like of which army? He was like, "I don't mind, but my army looks crap." And he was like, "Don't worry, the camera's high enough up that it will look fine." But yeah, no. So yeah, that was a bit of a tangent again. What was the actual question?
Just the size of your collection. So
Oh yeah,
so
so it's quite big, but I
quite
don't have
sizable.
everything. I've got
Okay.
massive like things in like I had like loads of random things missing from my collection. Like even though I had 4,000 points worth of dwarfs, I spent ages without owning an Aragon.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and
Okay.
and then like so yeah, like things which every collector has, I don't often, like because I never was interested in that army
That
potentially,
doesn't
or
surprise me.
yeah, I just like the idea of having 250 dwarves on the tape, like just spread out,
That's
going, that's
crazy.
hilarious. Yeah,
So what's the favorite model you? What's your favorite model that you own?
for a long, long time, and it possibly still is Sharky, as a
Okay. Yep.
Saruman Sharky. Um, I think it was the first Lord of the Rings model that I painted, where when I knew what good painting was like, I was there going, I've genuinely painted that well, and I really
Okay.
like it.
That's
I
good
kind of
then.
like I like cloaks and I like the mysteriousness of it and stuff like that. And it was one of the few models that I actually got because I liked the model at the time.
Yep.
Usually I would get it because I wanted to play with it or I thought it was cool. But that one was specifically because I didn't get the Scour and the Shire box, which was the only way that you could get it at the time. But I went and bought it off someone who got that box because I wanted it.
Okay. That's good
Um,
then.
so I actually remember seeking that out. The Dwarf Erebor Captain's a really, really nice model. It's not available,
That's
but
the one with the two axes.
yeah, so on the rock and sort of
Yeah.
like that. That's
Yeah.
for your quiz next time.
For the quiz
Um,
next time.
but no, so yeah, no, it's a bit. That was genuinely I wasn't expecting it to be. I just got the model because I needed it for my army,
Yeah.
um, and then I got it. And the pictures on the website don't do it justice, and it was really, really easy and nice to paint
I
well.
was going to say I've got it. I picked it up when it was out in production for like 15 quid. So like
Yeah,
good value, and yeah, it's really nice. It is really
um,
nice.
yeah. So I really like painting that. Um, all the fiefdoms models I think are really good. Generally, I think it's the best range. I reckon
Could
overall.
not agree more. They are
Yeah.
there.
And that was an army that I'd wanted for ages but never had the money. Like I remember being on holiday when they first came out and having the White Dwarf and planning like the list I didn't even really play the game at the time because I didn't have anyone to play with. But like they're going, I want all of these because they're
Yeah.
just cool. And then eventually when I got it, and it's probably the reason why I actually painted the Fiefdoms army and the troops nicely, like as a painting project, because I was like, I just like these models.
Yeah.
Um, so I'd say off the top of my head, out of models I've actually painted, they're my favourites. I've got other models which I really like and go, they absolutely really cool, but I haven't painted. And usually it's because I'm worried that they'll look crap when I paint them. Like,
Okay.
as in, like, because I've seen them and like, oh, that looks awesome, but I don't want to like mess it up.
Yeah.
There's a good fantasy example of it. Like my favourite model ever made by Games Workshop for a long time was the Chaos Nurgle Lord on Demonic Mount, and it was cool
Okay.
because it came with its own little signpost with a crow on, and then it looked like Death as like one of like the Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Okay.
Never bought it because I was like, I cannot do justice to that model in my head. Like, it's just like I love it, but I won't be able to paint it. Basically, people like Scott Whitefoot and that ruin painting for me, because you basically turn up going, I've painted something really cool that like my mates go, that's really nicely done and stuff like that. And then you look at their models on the tabletop and you're like, well, I may as well not try.
So we've been going for quite a while. So I'm going to move on to the gaming side of things
Yeah,
because I know that's what you're known for specifically, apart from
yeah.
playing dwarves and sleeping not in your own hotel room. So you've covered it a little bit, but do you play any other systems other than SPG?
So yeah, so SPG is what got me into the hobby.
Yeah.
Where about 2005, 2006, when it then started to decline,
Yeah.
it wasn't really played in store that much, and I didn't really have anyone to play outside of the store, apart from Matt. Which, if anyone's got brothers and you're both vaguely
Yeah.
competitive,
No, it's not good.
doesn't go well if that's the only person
No,
who was
it's
like.
not good.
I think he admits that I'm better than him now, but but yeah. So I then got into Warhammer Fantasy. Actually, this is weird. So when Lord of the Rings kind of sort of petered out, Matt got into 40k. I got in.
Okay.
I tried to get into it, and I never really got into it that much. I've always been much more of a sword and sandals fantasy man, I think. And then I got into fantasy. Um, I was going to do dwarves.
Surprise.
Uh, Actually, just backtracking a bit. The reason why I started off with dwarves because dwarves weren't originally the army. Like I think, like everyone, I was just really cool into like the film stuff, and you don't really see
Yeah.
dwarves. I liked Gimli, but I remember I can't remember why. Like I was picking a new. It was like the first time I was like, I want to get an army, and I basically decided I wanted a high defense army, and it was a toss up between Army of the Dead and dwarves. Um,
Okay.
that's the point. I've got 100 Army of the Dead models as well. Like because I use them as Men of Kandum in War of the Ring, and so I
Yeah.
painted them up normally. But and then basically it was a flip of the coin, and I think it just happened to be, or something that they had the Barlin's Guard of Khazad-dûm in store at the time, but they didn't have the Army of the Dead one.
Okay.
So I got the dwarves, and then I just went with it from there, and I've hated elves ever since. But
Nice.
yeah, but so yeah, back onto the question. So I was doing war. So I got into Warhammer Fantasy because I think 7th edition had literally just come out
Okay.
of it at the time, or it was about to. Basically, I came in at the transition, so I came in at the right time almost because there was a new rule, so I
Yeah.
could learn with everyone else, and they were doing lots of that stuff in store. Got into that. I was going to do dwarfs, and then randomly on one of my birthdays, I think. No, actually, yeah, it was my 13th birthday, which is very significant for anyone who knows about Skaven. I got given just by my cousin who had no, not cousin. I can't remember who it was. I got given just a bunch of old metal Warhammer Skaven, and then
Okay.
because I had like, so I was like, I'll do that army then. I didn't even know the significance of 13 is a magic number basically,
Okay.
and then basically I just did the Skaven army as my first army, and then much like with my dwarfing, I just got more and more of them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh, and then most of my competitive, how I play, comes from Skaven, which is really weird when we talk about like dwarfs and how I play SVG later, but I'll probably explain it. But yeah, so I then got into Warhammer Fantasy, played that for a few years, installed that. I dropped out of the hobby generally. I was still in touch vaguely with it around about when I was doing GCSEs and then AS level first year of college.
Yeah.
Um, Partly because I was supposedly doing exams, but partly because I got really into sport and stuff like that, and then competing competitively, and I just didn't have the time.
Yeah.
And I think Matt had gone off to uni as well by that point, and then so I
Okay.
didn't have him constantly sort of dragging me. Not that he was dragging me, but like at home to talk about
Yeah.
hobby stuff. Um, And then I only really got back into it properly because I randomly walked into the Games Workshop um, in Winchester after not having been there for about a year, and I think just to see what stuff there was. And then David Farmer happened to be in there, who I was mates with in secondary school.
Oh,
Lost
nice.
contact with for about 8 months, a year. Like I was never properly like. He was in the friendship group, but we weren't like best mates, sort
Yeah,
of.
yeah,
And that, and then just reconnected to him. He was getting into the hobby, and then there was basically a group of my schoolmates as well, um, who got into it at the same time. And then I suddenly had that group that I could then play with, and then we all played fantasy
yeah.
and met up like usually like once or twice a week and played fantasy battle games and stuff. I then went off to uni, and the Hobbit films came out. And then got into SPG a bit. They blew up the world of fantasy. For anyone who knows that, it was a
Yeah.
bit controversial at the time. I then came back for a work placement year. I was in Winchester. One of my mates who I used to play with had started up a wargaming club.
Okay.
He played Age of Sigmar, the new thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then because it was just like that's just what was being played, and I had the Warhammer Fantasy models, which the same system. I then started playing a bit of AOS when I was back. Did a few AOS events just to support the local guys, and then I did all right. I came second at a couple of the local ones, and then I was like, I'll go to one of these big events. So I went to it because a couple of the club guys were going, and it was at Firestorm,
Okay.
where Into the West is. So I went to that one. It was a 100-man event, sold out sort of thing. I didn't really know the rules because I hadn't actually played AOS. I probably played 4 games of AOS before this. I know I'd played about 7, I reckon. One of them was a practice game, and 2 of them at one-day local tournaments, which I was kind of just supporting, but they weren't like the most competitive. I turned up. I lost the first game because I didn't know the rules, and then I won every single other game, and then I came 10th, I think,
Oh, jeez.
and finished higher than everyone else from my club who went, who actually knew the rules, which wound them up a little bit. But and it turns out I beat people which was supposedly like names in the game.
Yeah.
But the simple fact was like Skaven weren't very good at the time because they hadn't, like I was the only Skaven player there.
Oh, wow.
But basically from SVG I learned how you move models to claim objectives, which is the main thing in sort of
Okay.
AOS. And so basically I was like, I don't know what any of your stuff does, but I know if I've got more models on that objective or near that objective at the end of the game, I'm in a good place.
Yeah.
And so basically I just did that, and then I beat people because one, they didn't know what my army did because no one took it because apparently it was rubbish. But I worked out a way to make it good because I don't know, like
Because
I
list
just
building.
yeah. No, it was literally me going because I still even because I did so yeah I just did well at that, and then I went to the heat because the GTs for AOS. I had a spare weekend last year. I had a
Okay.
bit of it was the weekend before the SVG GT, and then I was
Yeah.
just like, I'll just go. Like, so I just went up because I had a spare weekend, and then I ended up playing game 1. I ended up losing to someone who I now know is one of their ETC equivalent players, and
Okay.
I only just lost to him. But it was actually quite funny because like it's not that he was condescending, but because half of my models were on square bases stuck to blue tacked around bases because it's
Okay.
AOS is meant to be
Yeah.
played around bases, but at the time I couldn't be asked to like
Yeah.
move 200 models. But like so he was like coaching me through the game and all, like to remind me of the rules because also I hadn't played for ages by that
Yeah.
point because I only really played like once every 6 months of it. And then I ended up like almost beating him. It was kind of like based on a dice roll at the end, and then I won the rest of my games, and then I qualified for the main finale thing, which I could never go to in the end. But it was kind of like, there you go. It's just quite funny actually how transferable wargaming skills are to other systems,
Yeah.
like the
Most
basics.
definitely.
I mean, I would still get smashed by the actual guys who win the events
Yeah.
9 out of 10. I don't. The issue I've got with the system is it's more to do with list stacking than what I think. often like the way that they play it is it's all about combos rather than.
Okay.
And it kind of was to my advantage. I'll turn up with what I think is traditionally what a Skaven army should look like, because
Yeah.
it's how it looked. Whereas, so I had 200 models, whereas most people would only have like 40, because like
Okay.
they'll have heroes doing all these stack things and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So I was almost playing a different game, which like, yeah. So I've also dabbled a bit with 40k. I've never got a proper 40k army like to. I don't know what the standard points level is, 1500 plus.
Yeah.
Um, I got a orc army, which I painted up, and actually, I really enjoy doing that because basically the reason why I did the army is because I got to smash up tanks, because I made a whole lot of looted wagons, and I just went crazy with some clippers and some pliers and an electric drill I had, and they ended up looking pretty cool. I got like a 500 point Eldar jet bike army when I was like, I'll try and get into it. Never really got into it. And then basically, I 40Ks for me is a bit like a board game. It's one of those things I'll pick up and play and enjoy like once every so
Once in a
often,
blue moon, yeah.
but I couldn't play it week in, week out.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then that's my main sort of like
Systems.
hobby related systems.
Yeah.
I've dabbled a little bit in other ones, but never really properly learnt them.
Fair enough. So, would you say you play for a competitive scene or for fun?
Well, being competitive is fun. I'm definitely more at the moment in the competitive scene. I'm just a competitive person, so I think most people agree, and I know I have now been coined the hobby hipster, apparently, in one of your earlier interviews with Calman. That I don't take what are traditionally considered cheesy army lists.
No. You take ones that people say are bad and go, okay, I will prove you wrong.
Yeah, it's like I took my fiefdoms actually to an event back in the old edition, and even though they were rubbish, I'm still playing to win. So like I'm always competitive in that sense. Like it's sometimes it may be a bit controversial. Like it's a bit annoying sometimes when if you go to an event, like say it's a GVHL 100 event, like 80 pointers are different, and then I'm going for the competition. I'm not necessarily going to win, but I'm going for the challenge.
Yeah.
So sometimes, like it's part of the reason why I don't take really cheesy lists, because one, I'll turn up and then like you can smash someone with it, and then they won't have fun playing it.
Yeah.
And then it's also not challenging. So I'm competitive, and I'll take things which I believe are competitive that people will enjoy playing and or have underrated often. So yeah, I'm more competitive.
Yeah. So I think that kind of leads us quite nicely on to the next one. Do you choose an army based on the miniatures or the rules?
I would say the theme, but I don't mean the theme as in the Lord of the Rings background necessarily. Because for example, playing dwarves, you don't see dwarves in the background. Durin's folk is just mentioned. Like the whole army is basically just an invention of Games Workshop to a certain extent.
Pretty much.
Like, but I'll get little things which will be like, isn't this? It would be kind of funny if I did this, or like. So, for example, the most recent one is the Vault Warden en masse. Like, no one had taken Vault Wardens. I don't know whether it's because they thought they weren't very good, or whether they're just a bit expensive to get, or there just weren't that many people. There aren't many of what I'll call the traditionally competitive players on the scene taking Durin's folk.
No.
And it was kind of there going, and it kind of started because. So I now try and take an army for a year. So last year was Army of Thor, which is because I thought they looked cool and they were dwarves. It wasn't actually to be competitive at the time. This year,
turns out you're actually all right with them.
Yeah, although actually, if you look at my results, it was the second half of the year I got near like 4 out of 5 podiums. First half of the year I didn't get a single podium.
But it was actually you're learning the list, aren't you?
Yeah, it was literally. I really enjoyed the fact that I actually had to learn the things to do with the list, because Army of Thor, they're dwarves and they don't have much going for them on the face of it. And then
Yeah.
you start learning how to use like the Grimhammer's Bash and stuff like that. And then
Yeah.
you realise there's a lot more subtlety to that list than you think. But so yeah, so yeah, like the Vault Wardens thing started because Will was running his event in Ripon this year, and
Yeah.
it was like 1250 points, and he had some special custom scenarios, and one of them was your leader and his warband like start in the middle, and you've basically got to try and kill the other leaders and warbands and keep yours alive.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, wouldn't it be hilarious if I just turned up with like an army of Vault Wardens? And then I was trying to work out how many Vault Wardens it would take for me to have a defense 9 wall from one side of the 4-foot board to the other side of the 4-foot
Oh God.
board. And I think I was originally going to have about 30 or 40 Vault Wardens in that list. Money-wise meant that it wasn't going to happen. But that was
That's
basically,
extortionate.
that was where the idea started from. It was basically me just talking to either Matt Light or Dave Farmer or yourself or someone, whoever I'm like chatting
Yeah.
to about this, and just being like, this will be funny. I think there's actually some use in the mod. I like to find models which people don't think have quality, and then working out the situation that they are useful.
Yeah.
It's probably what I'll summarize. Space, because it's like often a model can look subpar if you look at it on paper
Yeah.
in a certain context. But if you put it in a different context, like Good v Evil, for example, so many models which are rubbish in, not necessarily rubbish, but not very optimum in a Good
Kind
v
of
Good
blue and
state,
blue. Yeah.
suddenly become a lot better in Good v Evil because, for example, Evil has a lot more strength 4 than Good does. Good predominantly, unless if you're a dwarf or a humanoid,
Yeah.
are going to be strength 3 troops. So therefore, if you're taking an Evil army, being defense 6 is better versus Good than if you are going to play Evil, and then defense 7 is better if you're Good
Yeah.
playing Evil,
Yeah.
or defense 5 and stuff like that. So dwarf rangers are good, really good in Good for Evil, in my opinion, whereas in blue and blue they're not as good.
Yeah.
And then fight value and stuff like that comes into play. So I like getting creative with the list ideas, because if everyone does the same thing, it's a bit boring, and it's also a bit more of a challenge. So
Yeah.
it's more rewarding when you do well. Like I've taken a really kind of cheesy army once or twice back in the old edition, just to see how well I would do with it.
Yeah.
And then I ended up getting, like, I podiumed and won a tournament, like, so second and first when I did it. So it's kind of like, okay, I can use those armies and do well.
Yeah.
Like, not meaning to come across arrogant, but I did it, and then I was just like, okay, let's see if I can, especially in the new edition, because the disparity is a lot less. Like,
Yeah.
let's see how far I can take Army of Thor, or how far I can take Easterlings or something like that.
I think me and you are very similar in that we like armies that not many people use.
Yeah, like as I said, like I get bored of seeing the same army on the tabletop the whole time. Like Riders of Theoden was really. I'm saying it because it is the most common one that I see at the moment, but it's as in a common, really competitive list.
Yeah.
It's really cool, but once you're playing it for the second time in a tournament, or like the
Yeah.
5th time, and like it's just sort of like there you go.
I think it has died down a little.
Yeah,
It's
there's a
nowhere
lot
near
of
as
meta.
popular when it
Yeah,
first came out.
yeah. There's a lot of meta and then counter meta and things like that.
Yeah.
It's actually one of my most enjoyable games that I've had recently was a game I lost, which was at the Masters. I played Jasmine Tetley first round.
Yeah.
And basically, I put my cards out on the table, and everyone was we had a chat going for all the Masters. And I basically just told Jasmine what my list was going to be. I was just like, that's it. And then Jasmine basically, to be fair, went and took the one list which is probably best. Like, it didn't exist at the time originally, but it's the first time I think she used, at least at a tournament, the Isengard Legendary Legion.
Assault upon Helm's Deep, yeah.
Yeah, so she had blisters and a bomb to deal with my Vault Wardens and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for me, because it was a list I never faced before, with a new way of playing, it was a hilarious and really fun game.
Yeah.
It ended up being really weird. I think it was fog of war, and my dwarfs, I think, worked out moved 72 inches in that game, because essentially I
Jeez.
was running up the board while Jasmine was running away from me, because Jasmine was trying to kill me with the ballista, get my heroes, and then or wait for a perfect position to get the bomb on. And I was
Yeah.
doing quite well at stopping that coming up. And then so I ran to her board edge, and then she was on my board edge, so I then had to run back. In the end, it actually was pretty close. It came that her ballista did nothing all game, and then it randomly managed to hit Gimli, who was going to do a heroic combat and jump and kill on the general with Barlin, and then
Oh
because
no.
it then got knocked down, it then basically
Just
um,
nullified it.
yeah, but yeah, no. Sometimes I would often say my most enjoyable games are often ones that I actually lose if I'm facing something which I think is new and creative. So if I
Yeah.
lost, everyone gets annoyed if you lose by dice roll, but if you lose because of something interesting that your opponent did, I really like that.
Yeah. I do agree. If you kind of go, oh, I didn't see that coming,
Yeah,
or they just have a combination that you've not quite thought was
yeah.
amazing, but yet it just out of nowhere surprises you. That is actually quite interesting.
Mm. Yeah. Like everyone knows what a shade does.
Yeah.
No, not everyone knows what a shield bearer does. It's like the sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. So going on like pure factions and legendary legions, which factions do you think are top tier?
Army of Lake Town. Uh,
The Army of Lake
right.
Town and the Survivors.
Oh, both depending on the level.
Okay,
So
cool. Yeah.
600 below, I'll go Army.
Yeah.
600 above, I would say Lake Town Survivors.
Yeah.
To be fair, I kind of count them as one as the same in my head half the time, because it's like it feels like the same. That I know they work differently, but it's they're
Yeah.
going one is basically the other, just at lower points, so you lose the big heroes like you would do anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, they're up there. Um, unsurprisingly, I think if this is going to be like the fourth or fifth one, I think people say Rangers of Aphelion at low points
Yeah.
are the most horrible army in the game. Like it they're just not a fun army to play against, and they're too good in certain situations.
I honestly think some people are getting bored of playing with them as well.
Yeah, I know Matt Light is like
Yeah.
if he's purposely like now building armies to beat them,
Yeah.
um, rather than use them himself, like if he
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
help it. So there, and then champion is it Erebor Reclaimed is.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people say Iron Hills, but I don't think the Iron Hills army pure is actually. I think it's better than the other dwarf factions, but I don't think it's actually broken. I think it's, but people get it mixed up with Erebor Reclaimed, because Iron Hills pure has the issue that you've got Dane,
Yeah.
captains, and Amurin and Dra. They're just your heroes.
Yeah.
There's not
Yeah.
really much flexibility. Whereas Erebor Reclaimed, you've got all of Thorin's company with
Yeah.
all of their insane rules that do weird stuff. You've got a much better ally chart in that you can ally then with Lake Town and Thranduil's
Randall's
Hall.
Halls as well, isn't it?
And you still get Dane, who gives you the
Yeah.
fearless Iron Warriors. For me, I know you lose the blister, but I'm someone who doesn't really rate the blister as highly as some of the other players do.
I think when it was 90 points, it was an auto include.
I even then, when I feel it, I've always much preferred the idea of having 9 dwarves to a blister. I put my
Okay.
faith in the everyday folk as opposed to the machines of war. Like, although I have come up with an army before for Durin's folk where I have about 4 dwarf blisters because it'd be hilarious.
That doesn't surprise me.
But yeah, no. So I'd say Champions Erebor, Lake Town, Rangers of Aphelion. Just below, you probably got Riders of Theoden,
Yep.
and um, Oh, what's the Army of the Dead Legendary Legion?
The Return of the King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're just below because they tend to be better in good v evil or
Yeah.
certain situations rather than all comers. But yeah, that's my list.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty solid. It's kind of going along the same lines that most of the other
Yeah.
competitive players that I've spoke to already have said. So what do you think are like the most overpowered individual models within? So we're counting it as within their army list, so they can get their army bonus, that kind of thing.
So, despite what I said, Dane in the Iron Hills army list is too good.
With the 4+ Master of Battle.
Yeah, so as soon as he gets that, he goes from being really good to ridiculously good.
Yeah,
Because the weird thing is, he's got the fact that he makes Iron Hills dwarves pass like fearless within 12 inches
that's the
feels
best
like
rule. That's the best rule
should
he's
be
got. That's the best
that
rule he's
should
got.
be the army bonus. Like, I don't get why that's not the army bonus, which
Yeah,
then makes it ridiculous that you can then take him in however reclaimed, in my opinion. So he is, Bard is, just because of what he does to the army. Actually, saying that, this is going to go a bit of a tangent. My main issue with Bard and Lake Town, Survivor specifically, is a comparison I make with fiefdoms,
yeah,
because fiefdoms models pay for their army bonus and bonuses they get from their heroes in their profile more often than not.
yeah,
So, like, they pay a premium to have the potential of +1 fight value, reroll ones to wound and stuff like that.
yeah,
If you look at Knights of Dartmouth anyway, whereas it feels like in Lake Town, you don't pay for that in either Bard, or you don't pay for that in the troops. I think you're meant to pay for it in Bard, but because of where you've got so many troops, and his
yeah,
army bonus then becomes 12 inches for it, you then essentially get a free, if you say +1 fight value is 1 point per model upgrade,
yeah.
and then you've got a 40 model army, which nearly always are going to be within that
12
12-inch
inches.
bubble.
Yeah, of course they
You've
are.
essentially got a free 40 points, and I don't think you actually pay for that in Bard.
I was going to say, because
I personally
what's
think you
the
should.
points difference between Imrahil and Bard fully kitted up? It's like 40 odd
Uh,
points, isn't it?
so isn't Bard like 120 base, and then
I have no idea.
I've got the books here. I can look up.
So mine's right
Bard.
behind me. Well,
Oh, if you can get it.
I know Imrahil is 160 on horse.
Yeah,
With where are we? Oh, okay, so Bard is 140 base.
yeah, but
So he's
so
realistically he's 155 because you're going to give him a horse and armor.
yeah, and although he's weaker, he's then, so you're comparing to Emerhill, but the fact is, in a vacuum that sounds fine, but then you give him Alfred, and then suddenly
Yeah,
becomes 175, but he's
yeah,
Boromir,
yeah,
and then you give him the kids as well, and then
yeah,
he suddenly becomes, I know, 205, but then he's essentially a Lendil, maybe not a Lendil, but he's foreign champion of Erebor, or
yeah.
King Under the Mountain, and it's kind of there, and it's just still increasing your model count as you do it. It's not like
Yeah,
it,
it's not like it's just
it,
those
yeah,
extra
it,
3 models, is it?
yeah. It takes a lot of skill to use the army because of where it's got lots of moving parts. But I personally think there's inconsistency as to where the points should be allocated. I think the points should probably be allocated in the Lake Town Militia rather
Yeah,
than in Bard, because if you're taking Lake Town, you're taking Bard, really. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
most definitely.
And then the militia feel undercosted because of that.
Yeah,
And also saying that, you get the 12-inch banner as well, which,
yeah,
like, so when you got a 40 model army, you're getting a free 40, 80 points, which I don't think you actually do end up paying enough of for in Bard's profile.
yeah,
But then if you were to play the army at lower points, Bard would then be arguably too expensive in that list,
yeah,
which is why it then swaps over to the army of Lake Town,
yeah,
because then you pay for the point per model in the Lake Town Guard
yeah,
rather than paying the X. I mean, you still go for Bard often, but I mean, it's sort of,
yeah. It balances out, doesn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
But
The thing about Late Time Militia for me is they've got
armor.
similar armor to Corsairs,
Yeah,
and yet there's
yeah.
But
Actually,
that's a discussion for another day, I
yeah.
think.
So Bard and / Lake Town Militia, depending which way you look at it.
Yeah.
I would say that Spider Queen,
Yeah.
Queen, famously quite good. What else I think is too cheap? Dane, I've already said. I tend, to be fair, I look at it the other way around often. I tend to think models here are too expensive for the cost that they are.
Yeah.
But those are the ones which stand out. Trying to think of any others. Rohan Royal Guard.
Okay.
I mounted specifically. The fact that they only pay 5 points. I'm using fiefdoms a lot as a comparison. Like if you can.
Oh. Ali, you there?
You got me?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. Yeah. So what Rohan Royal Guard,
Yeah.
if you compare it to Knight Darwin, who can get fight 5 if they're within 3 inches of Imrahil. So
Yeah.
not really as good as the charging +1 fight value, 12
Yeah.
inches of fear. They're both the same fight, then realistically, both the same defense, and same strength. If you don't give the lance, they're both.
Depend.
Oh
They're
yeah,
both.
they get. So one gets a lance, one gets +1 strength from the charge. Lance is slightly better, but you pay the additional point for it anyway.
Yeah.
And then I think was it Rohan Royal Guard end up being 16 points, and the Knight of Dormoth
17.
Yeah, 17
No,
points.
15 without a throwing spear, 17 with a throwing spear.
Yeah, so 15 points compared to 20 points for the Knight of Dormoth or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's 20.
I don't even think he gets. Does he get the lance at 20 or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's there again. There's a 5 points
so.
difference.
Yeah.
There's a 5 point difference between the two profiles, which are kind of quite similar. The Royal Royal Guard also get bodyguard, and it's kind of there going. There never should be that much disparity between two similar models.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Knights of Dormoth are that overcosted.
I think they're relatively well costed, to be honest.
Yeah. I think basically the Royal Royal Guard should pay the 8 points for their mount rather than the 5 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that because I could probably just go on for days coming up with random.
So we'll move on kind of a more tournament kind of based questions. What's your favourite points level to play? That's a good way to start.
1,250 points because I've won both tournaments I ever had a 1,250 point game. And actually, regardless of me winning, actually, it's a really interesting level to play at because no one plays at it.
Yeah.
And you can get everything. So the event that turned up, all the competitive players, it was a GVHL 100 event, and there were loads of good. Everyone turned up with quite a cool list because people I can take the Balrog and it won't hamstring my army.
Yeah.
Or I can take 2-3 trebuchets and it actually is sort of going to work because there's going to be Mimikil and things like that, and they actually are good versus it. And it's just a really cool level actually to play at. So I really enjoyed that. I also, before the advent of Rangers of Aphelion, I really enjoy low point games because it brings a lot of armies into the game who aren't competitive when you get to 700 plus points.
Yeah, Arnor is a good example.
Yeah, so Arnor, and also new different types of builds. So I can build a Durin folk army completely different at 450, 500 and be competitive than I can at 700 points, for example.
Because I know at lower points you prefer to do Kingdom of Moria, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. So I haven't quite worked out where the switch should happen. It's about 650 to 700, but I go Barlin and Gimli, and then when you get higher points enough, I then switch to Durin. But yeah, no. So it's kind of, I quite enjoy basically because 700 to 800 was so common for a while. I enjoyed a variety of when playing at extremes because you see different things.
Yeah.
I'm noticing a trend in that I just get bored of seeing the same thing over and over. But, I also really like Good and Evil. Good v
I
Evil.
was going to say that's one of my next questions. Do you prefer good or evil or
Okay,
blue on blue?
so I'll wait for that question.
No. Carry on. We'll dive straight in.
So I wouldn't prefer it if it was at every tournament, but I really like. I've briefly mentioned it, like the challenge, the difference in how you can prepare a list and the challenges and all that, because there's an extra layer of, well, you're not facing that, so I only have to prepare for this, and also I think Good and Evil is more challenging to win than in many ways, consistently do well in Good and Evil tournaments than just blue on blue, because you have to be good with two lists.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get lucky, so you could basically end up, for example, I take my Bolgazog's Legion, and then I get Contest of Champions with Bolg, as opposed to with, I don't know, like just a dwarf captain in the other. Like, you can get lucky and unlucky, but I think generally it's more difficult to come up with two good lists that you're capable of using and switch back and forth between the two. Because I think a lot of people, I know I used to, because especially when I was at uni, I didn't get to play the game outside of tournaments, and so the first game was kind of like a warm-up game. So I hope I didn't and I have to relearn how to play sort of at the level, and hopefully I would avoid sort of playing a really good player before the end of the tournament, like the second day of the tournament when I've remembered how to play. Whereas that being able to learn both the armies and switch between the two, I think is really sort of more skillful sometimes. It also makes the draw so much more interesting.
Yeah, it's really,
you know, when you're there going, mate, it's like going,
it's
so
really interesting.
like, so I know I've got the most wins out of these, but then it was going to slide down, and it just makes the in between bit of working out the draw quite funny and entertaining in the downtime of the tournament.
I think after, like, kind of the end of round 3, where you played either 2 with good and 1 with evil, or vice versa, you can figure out who you're playing round 4. But between round 4 and round 5, you have no idea. Literally no idea.
See, my only thing with good and evil events, which if I do run one myself, I'd want it to be a 7-game event. And then, so the first 6 you do traditionally good and evil.
Yeah.
So, and then the 7th game, everyone gets to pick which army they use. So it could be blue and blue.
Okay.
Because the one issue with like the GT sometimes is, for example, so this year, Jay and Jasmine were the top 2 going in who were undefeated.
Yeah.
I then had 4 wins and 1 draw. Jasmine and Jay couldn't play each other because they both used the same army. And it happened the year before as well. I had 4 wins and 1 loss. And then I ended up shuffling up both times onto the top table, even though I'd lost the game because no one else, I was still the top of my half.
Okay.
So it sometimes means that your final game isn't necessarily a true representation of what the final game should be.
Yeah.
Whereas if you do a 7-game event and then the last one you get to decide, then there's a lot, no one can complain about the matchup being the issue.
Yeah.
It's like, and then you got the intrigue, you can write down in secret what it is, and then you reveal what it is, so you almost can try and bluff your opponent and guess which army they're going to try and take. So it's like, I know they're really good with that army, so they're probably going to take that one, so I'm actually going to take the other one than I normally would, and stuff like that. And then even when you get lower down on the tables, you can just get everyone go, oh, that's a cool themey matchup, I'll use my Isengard, you use your Rohan. So you can just discuss it there.
You can just choose.
So yeah, that's an idea if I ever run a 7-game good v evil event.
That would be really good, and let's hope no one steals that idea.
Well, I've put it out here just now in public domain, dated 9th of June, so if anyone's run it after this, they know they've stolen the idea from me.
So, so you run some events yourself. What awards do you think should be given out at the end of a tournament?
The best person to sleep on a random floor award. Uh,
You might as well just
uh,
keep that in your pocket.
yeah. To be fair, my reputation precedes me more now than it actually happens. Like the
I was going to
last
say,
two
more
years,
recently, you've actually been all right.
yeah. I think it's because everyone else. So it originally started one because I was a mess, but two, I'm not. I'm normally, even though I get really drunk, I'm what I call like a cognitive drunk.
Yeah,
Um, So like I still am able to find a place to sleep and like get people back. Usually though, if you've ever gone out with a lot of us, there's quite a few people who aren't cognitive drunks, and it's
yeah.
kind of just like they're going, I probably should go back and make sure that they don't die. That's not always the case. Sometimes it's just because my hotel's so far away and like the gaming centre's there and you're staying there and I'm drunk and I can sleep on the floor.
Yeah,
Um,
you've done that with me.
yeah. Yeah, no, that was literally like, was it 100 meters from where you were,
Yeah,
like
to
the
Firestorm.
venue? Yeah,
Yeah, with the Airbnb we found.
but
So,
that's not actually an accurate 100 meters for anyone who's watching. Um,
so awards you give out at a tournament, what are they?
so you got the normal ones. Um, oh, I've got a controversial thing about this, but I'll leave it to the end. So first, second, third,
Yeah,
standard. I like best army, and I like calling it best army rather than best painted
yeah,
because I think sometimes you can have a really, really cool looking and incredibly well painted, horribly cheesy army.
yeah,
People won't vote for it often because it's a cheesy army sometimes.
yeah.
Uh, and so for me, best army is however you interpret that being. If you think it's themed and
Okay,
nicely painted, or if you think it's best painted, it's what you personally consider to be the coolest army out
yeah,
there, whether it's paint or thing. Um, you can do that as well as best painted, but I prefer from that I prefer best painted miniature and
yeah.
a best army
Okay,
because I think best painted miniature, one, it's easier for people to do.
yeah,
It's not as much of a commitment. And I know it's been brought up before, but like the people who go to events and constantly take, like, because I don't paint a new army for every event because it's hell. Like,
yeah,
if I had to do that, and I may want to use the same army and again, again, again. So those people who are the good painters, like I know Scott, because we're on Team Wales, like feels bad, like, and you mentioned before, I'm not going to vote for your Agma army again because it's already won 5 billion best painted awards,
yeah,
or whatever. Whereas if it's best miniature, he can just paint up a new miniature each time, and then
yeah, yeah. That's a good
and
point,
then
actually.
and then it's like a fresh challenge that. So I feel like it's almost easier and more accessible and kind of nicer for those guys who are really good painters, and they can still win best army. But it's kind of like
Yeah,
it. I won't call it politics voting, but it's kind of like it's based on actual uh, talent at the individual event rather than
yeah.
history. Um,
I know for
I
Scott's case, he's actually quite a close friend of ours, and he
mm,
was on a couple of weeks ago. Um, and he knows that the
yeah,
way it's not us being mean.
yeah.
He knows this. We've spoken to him about it, and he's perfectly fine with
I know it's me being mean. I like hated
it.
it. Yeah. So yeah, I like individual painted model because of that. I also am a massive fan of best terrain piece. And this dates back to me and my brother did a doubles GT for fantasy at Warhammer World.
Yeah,
And at the time, you could bring a bit of terrain with you, and fantasy had magical terrain, so
yeah,
it could enhance your game on the board, and you got to deploy it before you played. Um, I then basically copied this idea for my event in Winchester, partly because we didn't have loads of Lord of the Rings terrain at the time. We now actually had too much last year. Um, but won it, and then it's basically they're going, because with models, there's a certain limit on painting you can do and like conversions and stuff like that.
yeah.
Um,
Unless you
whereas if you,
scratch and build something,
yeah,
which not many people are going to do.
whereas paint a, if you encourage people with VPs like I do to bring it and like the tactical benefit it can give you on the board, being able to deploy your own terrain. They bring it, and then it's also there again. If you give best terrain, you get people bring like really cool stuff. So I can't remember who it was last year. Someone bought a mill with like running water, and it
Oh
was like an
wow,
electronic thing and all that stuff. People bring up, and people build from scratch these things, and it's really cool and really like sort of
that's really
inventive.
interesting.
And then you see people like, I think one of the things that I've always liked about Lord of the Rings, I want to do in the hobby, but never really done enough of. You've seen me do a little bit, is building terrain. Like I want to build an Osgiliath. I want to build Minas Tirith.
Yeah,
You've seen pictures of my project still slightly, but like the Eastling Temple that I was building.
yes,
Like
yeah,
the scenery of Middle Earth is probably what I fell in love with more so than the characters. And so like
yeah,
anytime that I get to see people bring really cool bits of terrain
yeah,
and stuff like that. Well, I do quite like the rise of the display board because of that as well. Like, cause,
yeah. I was going to
um,
say, I've started seeing more and more display boards
um,
across tournaments.
on that though, I do think there should be a separate display board award
Yeah,
and best painted army because they're different. I think
yeah,
personally.
definitely.
So yeah, those. Uh, I think most sporting is an important award, but I don't think it's done right. Because how do most events award best sporting?
Uh, you vote for someone you've played for that you've had a good game with,
Yeah. So
and you just tell the TO at the end.
do you think that's sporting or favorite game?
Oh, actually, that's a very good shout. The lines are often very, very blurred.
Yeah. And I'm there going like a favorite game can happen because of the stuff that happened in the game. Like I could play. I'm gonna say Kieran Street, for example, mate of
Yeah,
mine, one of like the nicest guys you ever play on in a tabletop situation
yeah.
ever.
He's
Um,
the man I played my first ever tournament game against.
awesome. You got let in nice and easy then.
Yeah.
Uh,
It was into the
but
west, and he took the 5 ring race.
oh yeah, that sounds like Kieran. Um, but but yeah, so I could play him in two completely different tournaments. One game because of how it goes, like it could be the closest game ever, really enjoyable,
Yeah,
stuff like that. Next game, all the dice could go against him or me. I
yeah,
don't enjoy the game because I rolled ones all game. In both situations, Kieran's been equally as sporting,
yeah,
but I'm going to vote for him in one time because of the context
yeah.
as I would the other. So I always we kind of did a test run when at the ETC a couple of years ago. When I was sort of involved because it was happening in Cardiff, so I was helping run it. In that you do a point system instead. So
See,
instead of
I've
picking one person, I don't think it worked perfectly, but it's there going. Um, you basically say if your opponent, so say 1 to 5 is the way it
yeah,
worked. So 1 is they were actually 3 is they were as sporting as you expect them to be. 4 is they were like more sporting than you
yeah,
consider, and 5 is higher. 2 going the other way, and 1 is they basically don't belong in the hobby. Which like kind of worked better, but it means that you get judged on every game you have.
yeah,
So, and it also, my issue with my sporting is charismatic people will get it more often than non-charismatic people.
yeah.
Not
Agreed.
because they're more sporting, but because one, you remember them, and it's just sort of like they're going. It's just a personality thing. So
Yeah,
I don't think sporting really. I think sporting's more representative of favorite game than most sporting. I don't know how I would do it in essay, but I feel
I
like
think the point system works. I think that was ETC in Cardiff, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah,
And I think the problem with it there was you had to do it after every game.
yeah.
You
I think
should
if you had
you should do it at the end of the tournament once you played everyone, and then you can because say your first game was enjoyable
yeah,
and you gave them a 4, but then you had 2 games out. You had the next 2 games. were more enjoyable again, but one was more enjoyable than that one. You've only got one
Yeah.
level to go after that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so I'd almost go the opposite way. I'd cap it at, so get rid of the higher, so get rid of 4 and 5, and you just have 3. And basically, if you're unsporting, you drop down. If you're just
Okay.
sporting, you stay at 3. You'd probably get a lot of people tying across the top.
Oh yeah, of course
So
you would.
you'd probably have to come up with a tiebreaker. Like maybe you do um like you get to do at the end of the event a special star like
Yeah,
of the player that you think, so they almost get a bonus to point in the tiebreaker.
yeah,
Um, but because I do think it's sometimes a bit depressing. Like I'm normally lucky enough that I get like one most sporting vote at an event, but if I'm there looking at the board at the end of a 100-man tournament or something like that,
yeah,
and I haven't got a single sporting vote and vote at the end, because like you often see the whole spreadsheet, it almost kind of is like makes you feel like, oh, I'm a bit of a dick or people don't like
yeah,
me. Where
yeah, yeah. I
actually
know
you
what you
can
mean.
have 6 just perfectly nice games. They happen to play nice, like had a really like charismatic, nice game, like as
Yeah,
well that event,
exactly,
which means that you don't get it. Um,
exactly.
yeah, that's my slightly controversial opinion on it, but I don't know whether it will be. I'm sure people will let me know if I'm wrong.
Yeah. So we'll move swiftly on to community because I think we've been going on for nearly an hour and a half already.
Oh,
Um,
we joked about it happening.
yeah, we did. So, which player slash army specifically do you have? Do you struggle playing against? So, kind of, is there an army you see on the table and instantly go, "This is gonna be tricky, whatever I've got," or there's a player where you go, "This is gonna be a tricky game"?
Um, no,
No.
it may sound a bit arrogant, but genuinely, I believe you should always believe you're going to win the game or be
Yeah.
able to. I may turn up to a table and find out I'm playing Matt Light with Rangers of Aphelion, and be like, okay, this is going to be difficult. But I, I get that out of my head and I just go, how am I actually going to win this game? I don't.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason why so many people lose to the traditional top players is because they don't think they're going to win.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
amount of
Yeah.
times that I've seen someone playing Ed or Jay or Will, or even like people, because I've got a low key rep, but I think it's kind of gone up a little bit as a
Yeah.
compared to sort of come up against me, and they genuinely were there going, "Oh no, I'm playing one of the like ETC guys or
Yeah.
big people
Yeah.
stuff like that," and then they've lost the game pretty much because if they don't believe they're not going to act like, then
Yeah.
they won't look. They just presume they're going to lose. They won't look for the avenues to win, um,
I,
and
I, I
so
know I know I was the same when I started. When I started, and I've played Ed probably 4 or 5 times,
mm,
and I know in that first 1 or 2 games it was like, oh god, I'm playing Ed. What do I do,
yeah,
etc. But when kind of the turning point was me was playing Angmar versus Rivendell Knights at Seize the Prize, and I was like, right, I've just got to get there, hope I dig it up quickly, and then make a beeline with whatever I've got left for the board edge, and kind of
yeah.
not hope for the best, but that's my best strategy for winning.
I'm going to contradict myself later, but initially you're playing the game, not the player. Like, as
Oh
in,
yeah.
what happens? Like, he could be waving his arms around, but that's not going to affect the game.
No,
The
yeah,
models doing on the top are going to like.
yeah,
But yeah, so I genuinely like that. Just go into every game. And the other thing is, if you're playing someone who you think's better than you, push them as far as you can go. Like, it's a dice game. Like, so
yeah,
I'm gonna bring it out. I try not to because I know Will Champion's gonna rip me for it. But like, I played a lot of competitive squash,
yeah,
and I know some people should beat me. Like,
yeah,
there's some, like, I went to uni with like some of the best players in the world. Like, I'm not as good as them, but I know if I go on a court with them, they could trip over, hurt their arm, and then suddenly not play as well. Like,
yeah.
you're in it. Like,
That's
you're in it
exactly
to
it,
win
isn't it?
it. Like, and in wargame it's more likely because they could just roll a one, like 4 1s with Aragon on the charge, and then he dies.
Yeah,
Um, and also, if you then do manage to beat them, the reward feels so good. Like you're never if you're looking to get, say, in the top 10 of an event, you're probably going to play a good player now and have to beat them. So
Yeah, easily.
while at events I may be like, oh, I want to avoid playing X and X just to give me an easier run. I'm fully aware by the end of the tournament, if I
Yeah.
want a podium or get points for the league or stuff like that, I'm going to have to beat them. So I just have to accept that I'm going to beat them, and I believe that I can beat them, and then
Yeah.
it makes it easier.
Yeah, that's good then. So on a similar note, who's the best player you think you've ever played against?
Best.
Yeah.
Ooh. I don't know, because this isn't even actually me being political, because
You just think there's a lot of people around a similar level that you've played against?
I'm going to use Jay as an example because he's traditionally considered like one of the best. Like I've got a pretty even record against Jay, at least in the latest edition.
Yeah.
Like I've smashed him 12-0, he smashed me 12-0. We've had a few draws. I think I've
Yeah.
drawn against him actually more than any other player, really. But it's there going like I see mistakes that he's made in my games, and then I also see like actually it's quite handy being on the live stream against him on the final game,
Yeah.
because like I don't think like he's probably going to watch this, but I don't think he played that game very well at all. Like I don't think I should have been in the running at all. I had a bit extra luck at the beginning, and then it kind of went away from me at the end. But I don't think he played it perfectly. He didn't play it awfully.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have won it instead of drawing it. But like, and so I see flaws he done. But then I've played other games against Jay, and then I'm like, he's done it perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think I've played all of the good players enough now. And the way I play, and I think throws people off. So I don't think I'm the best. How people get on against me, I don't think it's the best judge of how good they are as a player. I will say the only person with a winning record against me in at least the latest edition is probably World Champion.
Okay.
And I think it's because he deals with me better than, say, an Ed or a Jay do. And I'll probably elaborate on that in a minute. But if I was forced to say someone, I'd say Will, purely because of not the game, but not the tabletop game. This is where I was
I
contradicting
was going to say
myself on that.
contradiction. Yeah.
Yeah,
You have to play a combination of the player and the game.
yeah. So once you get to that level, you start playing another game inside a game sometimes.
Yeah. It's going back to all that mind games, isn't it? And
Yeah,
you
and
try
it's my favorite part of playing the game. And I mean, I don't know how many more questions we've got, but
only like 2 or 3.
cool. Like, I'm not sure if it relates to it, but basically, for me, and it comes down to why I play armies that I play, because and all the way back to me using Skaven and that. So when you play SVG, I think the majority of people, and this is true even for the good players, like the heroes are the important models in the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think they're any more important than a troop. Like, I know they're worth, say, 15 troops,
Yeah.
but for me, where I learned to play, I will sacrifice Aragon if it will serve me a better purpose somewhere else. Like, I will, like, because I don't need Aragon to win every game. Like, Aragon's not actually going to win the game.
No,
Like,
not
if
always.
he dies, if I have that mindset, he'll lose me the game. Like, everything is disposable. Like, if it achieves the goal to win the game, I will throw him in to die because, let's face it, if Aragon looks like he's in a position he can die, your opponent's going to jump on it and commit a lot of resources to it.
Oh god, yeah, of course they will.
But the fact is, Aragon, I mean, he may be the general, but he's only going to be maximum worth 2 VPs in a game, 3
Yeah.
VPs. Like, that may mean I can then go claim 6 other VPs over here.
Yeah.
And once you get used to end conditions and timings of tournaments and stuff like that, the good players, and I think Will for me is one of the other players that I feel like does this. You're sacrificing that guy's won me the game. It's like sacrificing your queen in chess. People
Yeah.
don't think you should do it, but sometimes it is the right decision to make.
Sometimes it's necessary, definitely.
And also, I like, so if you take someone like Ed's the best example of it, and this isn't actually. He's very, very good at like working out probability and stats and averages and stuff like
Oh,
that.
his quick maths is like
Yeah,
unbelievable.
like he'll tell you what the unlikelihood of him rolling those 4
Yeah.
ones was. Like, he just knows that off the top of his head, and he's a good player because of that. And most of the good players are really good at knowing averages. Like I know basic sort of like I should get 2 4s if I roll 4 dice or stuff like
Yeah.
that. But nowhere near to the same level. But sometimes going for the 1 in 10 chance is better than going for the reliable chance,
Yeah.
because it's one of those ones going like if you ask Dave Farmer, because weirdly he's one of the players I fear the most because he knows me the best. Like he because he knows that I do this, and so does everyone else now after this, but whether it makes a difference, who knows. But I will throw a curveball as often as possible,
Yeah.
because people have plan A and they maybe have plan B. Being able to adapt is a really difficult thing
Yeah.
in a strategy battle game. And so if you can do something which they didn't expect, it may only have a 1 in 3 chance of coming off, or it may be even less or something like that. Like it can completely mess with someone's game plan.
Yeah.
And as soon as you mess with that person's game plan, you've then got so much like ability to like go and do what you want to do, and like they're going to start making mistakes. I think that's the reason why sometimes when I've played, like, I'm not saying it works every time, but like when I've played Jay or Ed or Will, or like Calman or Jasmine or Ryan, or
Yeah.
I'm just naming every good
Yeah.
competitive player I can get. So, but, Barney,
Yeah.
but you, uh, um, I went and lost my point halfway through. No,
Throwing curveballs.
yeah, so like I think people make more mistakes against me because of that.
Yeah.
So the reason why Jay may not play the perfect game against me is because, one, I use a weird army. It's
Yeah.
not what he necessarily always expects, so it'll be a different thing, so he doesn't know what it's going to do. And 2, I'll do weird things just to mess with the whole entire game
Yeah.
and throw it up in the air and stuff like that.
I completely understand where you're coming from, because playing Angmar a lot, and people go, "Oh, cool! I've got this big hero," and suddenly I flash kill it in a turn, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh god!" and it kind of throws them off kilter a little bit.
Actually, talking about that's really good. So I'm referencing it partly because GT 2 years ago,
Yeah.
final game I played Dave Nolan, he used Agmar. I
Yes.
used my army of 4. So as you say, Agmar's designed to stop heroes and
Yeah.
just kill them. My army of 4 is designed that the troops will win the game for me. It's like
Yeah.
not here. So I remember because I played him before the game before as well, and he was on about, "Oh, you should be glad that you're not playing my Agmar because I'll smash you with my Agmar," and stuff like that. Like, because it was a really good army list. If you were playing a traditional army where people
Yeah.
rely on your heroes to do, whereas I was happy for him to shut down my heroes. I assume my heroes are always going to fail, because like it's better to plan that everything's going to go wrong, so then
Yes.
you're not caught off guard when it does. And sure enough, he paralyzed all my heroes, and I didn't roll a single 6 all game to get them back up. But I won the game because I was assuming my heroes were going to be useless anyway. And so
Okay.
I just planned they were just there to drain his resources and be a distraction, while the rest of my dwarves, which were being untouched by like his Witch King and stuff like that, just
Yeah.
went through and smashed his guys and like just killed his troops.
Yeah.
And I was playing a different game to what he expected with my list to play. Like his army is better than mine objectively, but because I knew how to play that army against his,
Yeah.
uh,
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, ended off like veering off at the end of it. Yeah,
But
but no,
yeah,
it's
no, I get what you mean.
um, and also a weird sort of observation Jasmine made when I think it was the last time I played her. May have been before. That apparently I'm unreadable in a game, which I found really weird because I'll be there thinking like I must look like I'm sort of crapping myself because everything's going wrong or stuff like that. But apparently, like Jasmine was like, you could never tell what's going on with me, mainly because I think I just have a very neutral face.
I was gonna say
And
you're just very chilled. I know that when we've played,
yeah,
it's
I,
always it's not a stressful game.
yeah, and also my nervous twitch as I smile, which probably is weird. Like I got a nickname from one of my old jobs of Smiler, because this was when I was away. I was rubbish at it to begin with, and basically they called me Smiler because I kept on cocking up, and then I'll be like, yeah, basically. So I think that throws me forth. Whereas people who played me and know me really well, so Dave Farmer, he's the only one who knows when it's going wrong, like for me, or when
Okay.
something's a bit like, because he knows what my little ticks are and stuff like. So literally, he knows down to the point where I think if I'm sort of like crossing my arms, it means a slightly different thing to if I'm sort of like that, or also being really hungover helps throw people off. But
Yeah. So have you got a favorite tournament game or a favorite or like a top moment? Let's squeeze it to a top moment.
um, I'm gonna.
I know there's a pretty infamous one on a live stream,
Which one was that?
the throwing axe.
Oh yeah, no, that was funny. But that hasn't actually even. I mean, I think it was funny just because of the amount of like it because of Dave's like reaction where he's just like, oh no, and like because you can't see it off camera, but like he walked around a bit and all that, like understand because he didn't know
Let's
what
just
he made it.
clarify what's going on. So it was the GT.
Yeah, so it was the
It was
GT.
that
So the
Angmar
Agmar
versus
game. So
yeah.
you can go back and watch it.
It's
And
on
basically,
the Warhammer TV Twitch
yeah. Um,
channel.
is it still free? Because they did make it free for lockdown for a
Ooh,
while.
quite possibly. I do not know. If you
If not,
got
you can get
if
it
you
with Amazon Prime and
yeah.
stuff
So
or
so
whatever.
Dave had Gulliver, who was on one wound.
Oh no, we need to start at the beginning because it's even
Oh God!
funnier. So basically,
Be quick.
Gulliver. No, it's only the term for. So Gulliver charged a paralyzed dwarf
Yeah.
and another dwarf who then had 2 sphere supports. He then lost the combat against my 3 dice, and I did 3 wounds.
Oh wow.
But the thing is, he lost the combat. He could have used might, I'm pretty sure, to win the combat, but he was like, "Oh no, it doesn't
It's not
matter."
worth it. Yeah.
But which I disagree with because of where Gulliver's attacks go down. So he
Yeah.
then took 3 wounds, so he's down to 1 wound, which meant he had 1 attack as well.
Oh God.
Next turn, um, I win priority. Dave doesn't call anything. I go, sweet. 1 Gulliver is not going to get an additional attack if he charges, so he's only going to have 1 attack,
Yeah.
which means it's going to be 1. Like I can win the combat fairly comfortably and probably get a lucky
Yeah.
wound. As it turned out, I charged a Grimhammer in, threw an axe, hit, did the wound. I think it's like a 1 in 6 chance. Ed can correct me later. Um, and then like killed Gulliver. And so Gulliver that game, I think I'd only killed 1 or 2 dwarfs
Oh
because he hadn't
wow.
done any heroic combats or anything like that. Didn't use
Jeez.
his might, and it was just like, well,
Did you die with 3 might?
I'm pretty sure he died with 3 might. I maybe
Oh
remember it
wow.
slightly because because he could have called a heroic move with Gulliver, but he was like, I may need that later. He could have like won the
Yeah.
combat using might. He could have done heroic combats earlier. But I think he was so like there going, I need the might, but I think he forgot how fragile Gulliver was. And
Yeah.
admittedly, everything about that went my way, which made it look like it was a really lucky game for me, and that was really fortunate. But equally, I think I rolled 24 times for my 3 heroes to get back up. All of them had might, and none of them ever got back up again, apart from when I burnt 3 might with 4, because it
Oh
got near the
God.
end of the game, and I was just like, I just need 4 up and running. So it's like it's one of those. I had an instant moment of good luck, and then a really protracted sort of incident of bad luck.
just you see the
Yeah,
and there we
yeah.
go.
Yeah, no. So that was quite a funny one, and I do rib Dave about that a little bit because I mean it's funny. The fact that it happened on the stream, I think, made it better, and essentially, not that I want to deny him the win at the GT, but if he'd won that game, he would have won the GT that year.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so it was
yeah.
basically the worst possible thing for him in his life at
Because
that
it was kind of like
exact moment.
that one action cost
Yeah,
him the GT.
yeah. And won Jay the GT. So
Yeah.
Jay owes me a GT, and I reckon Jasmine owes me a GT as well. Because of the fact I drew with Jay meant that Jasmine won because Jay, I think, had higher VP because Jay drew with me.
Okay.
So basically, I keep on being the bridesmaid and winning everyone else the GT at the moment.
Yeah.
So that one. A lot of my games I really remember come from the GT, actually. I think because there's a bit of extra prestige, but the person I've had the best games consistently and most memorable things for me has been against Dave Reed, who
Okay.
doesn't play that many competitive tournaments anymore, sadly.
Yeah.
But I think there was one game in particular we played at Preston, and it's got to be the stupidest luck that I've ever seen in the game. Like, as in, pretty much, it seemed like it was going horribly wrong for me because of horrible dice rolls. 1 minute, next
Yeah.
minute, his ring ray from Felvis has just died to a single dwarf archer.
Oh
Next
gosh.
minute, like Gimli or whoever I was using at the time died to 2 just orc warriors. Then suddenly the next stupid bit, it was so swingy going one way and the next. Like, it's there going like, it was, the luck was fair, but it wasn't right. Like, nothing normal happened in that game. I also remember one of my favorite games ever was I played him with at the GT, and it was probably, at least at that time, the best game I'd ever played of SVG, I think, in my opinion. He used to have a really, really horrible Fallen Kingdoms army, and I ended up being at Recon with my dwarfs, and it was one of those ones, the luck just went as it should do. Like, statisticians across the world will be happy with the dice roll. And I just remember, like, it's happened a few times with Dave going both ways. It's there going like, I feel like I really earned that win, and like,
Yeah.
and sort of stuff like that. Trying to think of any other stupidly funny moments. I think that there's so many that it kind of blurs in now, that they don't
Yeah.
stand out.
Yeah. I know. I do know what you mean.
The game with Jasmine that I've already mentioned was generally a hilarious game just because of where my dwarves were running a full marathon. Like, I don't think my dwarves moved that far for my other like 5 games in that event as they did in that one game. Um,
So you mentioned the GT a lot. What's your favorite tournament?
GT's got to be up there. There's a bit of it, like, my one issue I had with the GT, which was the soft scores, they've now gotten rid of. So I'm kind of and it's one. Everyone says that Warhammer World is Warhammer World.
Yeah.
It's a big event. There's a lot of prestige.
It's like the Holy Grail, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, I think even though some tournaments may technically be more competitive,
Yeah.
it's sort of, it's got that standing because it's the official event. Like,
Yeah.
it will always be
Yeah,
using the
yeah.
official rules no matter what and stuff like that. So yeah, and Nottingham's a great night out, to be honest. What else is there? I'm a bit weird in that I really like the smaller events.
Yeah.
So I know. So I really like. I forgot of Dice of Men up in
Yeah.
Ripon, because if it's held, it's like a cool event. There's 24 people, 32 people, however many. You get to talk to everyone.
Yeah, I
The
think
issue,
that is part of the problem going to
yeah,
tournaments
for
is
me,
you can't chat to everyone.
yeah.
And
So for me,
the worst is saying goodbye.
oh god, like, I have to spend 2 hours. Like,
Yeah.
my goodbyes last longer than this video. But actually, I don't know. This video is getting pretty long probably. But no, so I go. So when I first started doing the league, it was after the first season, beginning of the second season. So pretty much, if it was a 24-man event, that was a big event. but
Yeah.
it was the same 20 people. Like there'd be 30 of us, and it'd be basically it was just I wasn't winning events at the time, like because I just wasn't that experienced at the game at that point. But I was just going because it was like a weekend away with mates, and
Yeah.
like loads of people say it, and like my advice if you ever go to Taunt, always just go to the social. Like even if you don't drink, hang out for like the first couple of hours because we normally play like some form of dice game or something like that,
Yeah.
or have a quiz or things like that. Because it's a social aspect, and the really annoying thing about big tournaments is the social becomes a bit of a hassle. Like it sounds weird, but because like so if I go to Ardicon,
Yeah.
like so last year I played in the best team ever.
Oh, obviously.
Yeah, and like hanging out and socializing with you guys was awesome and really good fun.
Yeah.
I was then staying.
I really, really enjoyed our team dynamic.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Because the year before we had 6 of us, I think.
Yeah, I mean I wasn't there the year before, so
Six of us, and then you and Sean joined us.
yeah. So me and Sean made the difference with a
Yeah,
party.
of course. But yeah, at the end of every game, getting the 8 of us together, talking about our games, and we actually up until the final round, we were all going really well.
Oh yeah,
we had 4 of us on
4
4-1,
wins. Yeah,
and then we had Luke on 3-1, and then it was kind of it was we were doing really well, and then in the
yeah,
last game, everyone lost.
yeah. I mean, I didn't want everyone to lose, but I was kind of there going because of where I came in as the competitive guy in the team.
Yeah.
I was there going, if like Sean finishes above me or something, and he'd only done like 1 or 2 tournaments beforehand, I
Yeah.
feel like I'm in for a ribbing. but yeah, so yeah, like hanging out with you guys was really good fun and all that. Hanging out with a little bit with the Knots guys, but there are loads of people that I'm really good mates with, which I'd never really got to talk to more than a sentence throughout the whole entire tournament
Yeah.
because you never see them, and it kind of almost feels like it's not that it's bad, but I kind of want to there's not enough time to go talk to everyone. Whereas
Yeah.
at a small event, you all kind of hang out together and you don't feel bad about not talking to someone.
Yeah.
Also, small events are usually held in pubs. So, and, and then you kind of just get drunk there in the evening and then maybe wander somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely, so my favorite events probably that I've been to recently, I really enjoy running events as well. But so Ripon, I would say, um, like I enjoyed running my Winchester one because it was a small one in a sort of social pub.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't do them at the time, but the Slayer Gaming ones were cool.
Yeah.
East Grinstead.
I heard good things about that.
Yeah, East Grinstead was cool, though that's kind of stopped as well. Annoyingly, a lot of the smaller venues ones have stopped.
I think it's partly because the GBHL has become so much bigger now.
Oh yeah, and also some people used to run them, like Sam Page and that kind of don't actually live in that area anymore.
No.
So if you don't live
No,
near
not
that
at
venue,
all.
it's quite hard to run it. I mean, he still ran it for like 3 years, even when he was living in Manchester. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really?
It's about a 4-hour drive. I mean, so I won't deny his commitment to it, but yeah. For me, the actual event, I know a lot of people really love like the Palantir and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
I mean, for me, there's not much difference in terms of enjoyment of a competitive event and a fluffy event. I think they're both like equally as enjoyable.
I think with the new edition, that's definitely the lines have become a lot more blurred.
I think it helps the fact that at a competitive event, I get on and know most of the competitive guys, and I enjoy the competitive scene. So therefore, I'm getting like I don't lose anything from going to one of those events. Like it's the people who just really into the narrative.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always going to have a game I enjoy, basically, whether I go to a fluffy event because I enjoy just the game, or the competitive event because I enjoy the competitive side. So yeah. So I mean, generally, any event which is in the venue has to be warm. That's like something that there's nothing worse than actually being in a cold venue in between games for half an hour, because you'll be like you're not really sort of like I remember some of the early ones. They were like proper, like you could see your icy breath.
Oh,
like
God.
you were hilarious, like but it was just sort of there going like you could see your breath. You're freezing. You're wearing gloves. So like Slayer Gaming is one of my favorite venues when it existed, but also the venue they had before that was one of my least favorite because I generally, the first time I had to go there, I think it was my second event, I had to wear gloves to move the things because it was in the middle of February. It
Oh
was like
god.
snowy and all that, and it was just like a storage unit warehouse converted thing.
Oh
Um,
god. Like
like,
Firestorm used to be.
yeah, Firestorm's so much better now. It's in the new place, and it's got a bar,
Yeah.
which serves alcohol. Also, I'm going on a bit of a tangent again, suppose. But the location to social stuff is really important for me as well. So one of the reasons me and my brother were really happy about running an event at Firestorm, one is, I mean, it's really easy in the sense of being able to do it because they are a gaming venue, but they're right in the centre of Cardiff,
Yeah.
and so not every, like, I didn't drive until like a couple of years ago, and so like if you've got Cardiff city centre, which has hotels everywhere and
Yeah.
bars and places you can go eat and get food and stuff like that and walk to and from the venue in time,
Yeah,
it's a lot
definitely.
nicer experience than being stuck in the middle of like an industrial estate in, I don't know, Durham,
Yeah.
like where you then can't get to facilities and that, and then you're relying on people to drive you back and forth to the hotel if you can't drive, or you can't drink or have to get taxis and that. So
Yeah.
it just makes it easier. But that's not a criticism of events so much as just if you have that, it's a really helpful thing.
It's a bonus rather than a negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. I think that concludes all my questions. So
yeah.
thank you very, very much for coming on, Ali.
You know, we didn't even mention me running the GBHL.
Oh yeah, God.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll save that for another time.
Okay, cool. Another 2 hours.
Another 2 hours. Yeah, this will definitely be the longest one. So if you that's a good question for you.
Am I used to being the longest one?
No. Who do you suggest I should talk to next?
Oh, that's a new question. I'm trying to think of.
So Will last week suggested Barney. Well, he messaged me afterwards and said Barney, Menzies, Ed Ball. Oh God, who else did he mention? And there was one or two other names. Damien and Steve Crow, I think, were the ones.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go partly because I really enjoy talking to it. Jasmine Tetley's got quite a lot, and it's unlike, say, where I'm quite more focused as competitive. Jasmine generally all hobby and stuff like that.
Yes.
She's written a pretty cool article for a secret project for the league.
Yep.
It may have been revealed by this comes out. I don't know.
Quite possibly.
Or if not, by the time you finish the video, it may have been revealed.
Yeah.
But, so Jasmine's quite cool. Dave Farmer's going to be quite interesting if you ever interview him about it, because he comes from it at a different angle to it, I think me and a lot of people do. Then Kieran Street's cool. Like, I'm just naming half of my mates now. I think I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. I would really be interested. Actually, Sean would be a good one. Someone
Sean
who's recently
Creed.
just started doing competitive tournaments.
Oh, okay.
Their opinion of it is something that I'd be interested in. And I'd be really interested in, on a similar vein, so the Masters event where we teamed up with the Masters with the sort of apprentices, getting an interview with one of the apprentices. Because I'm quite interested. Like, I know obviously the guy I was with, what he thought, but I'd be quite interested to see like what they thought playing with some of these like seasoned veterans for these local people, just to like the area. Because I'm always interested. Like, generally, I talk to Ed and Will and that enough at events to like know their opinions. I mean, I'll still listen to them and find it interesting, but just like it's quite interesting for me to see the perspective of someone outside of my circle.
That sounds good.
Just don't interview Luke because he's really rubbish. Does he even do anything for the Guardians anymore?
Not recently. I know he's recently moved house. So
yeah, it's just a poor excuse.
I might pester him for some hobby vlogs.
I'm just ribbing him because like Team Wales.
Because Team Wales. I think that's an excellent note to end on.
Yeah.
But if you've liked this video, please comment, like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you soon.